I've never cried at any other Star Trek episode. None of them have made me cry except for that one.
Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 88, recorded May of 2023. This is the Trek Profiles Podcast, where each episode we chat with a Trekkie. We hear about their experiences with the show and how it's affected their lives. I'm John, your intrepid host of this whole enterprise, and I welcome you to this, the Trek Profiles Podcast, episode number 88. If you wish to get in touch with us, you can reach us at feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter or Blue Sky at Trek Profiles. Warning, we can talk about any episode of Star Trek at any time during this show. You have been warned, Human. As always, my trusty sidekick and co-host is the distinctly diligent, distressingly direct, yet disarmingly digital M5 Multitronic unit. You may greet the listeners, M5.
The M5 was at full power.
Let's see the announcements in the news.
News, weather, and announcements ready.
Trek Profiles Podcast is an independent show. If you'd like to support us, the best way to do that is just to follow us wherever you're getting your audio. We are on all the major platforms, and your following us helps other Trek fans find us. The Trek Profiles Podcast is 100% advertising free. We don't have a supporters program or anything like that, but if you'd like to show some appreciation, I'd ask for your donation to our official charity here on the show. That's the Children's Fund for Glycogen Storage Disease. There's a link at trekprofiles.com/donate to give directly to the charity if you'd like to participate. Okay, a little bit of news here. As routine listeners will know, I put in bonus material at the end of each episode, and I got a lot of it in this one. The interview itself is only about an hour and 20 minutes, but the raw interview, the raw recording, when we finished recording and I just saved it and looked at the length, it was over 3 hours. So I had to make some choices to cut that down to an hour and 20. My guest was very active on Twitter, and is active on Twitter, and she got blocked by a Star Trek media showrunner. Some of you might know who that is, and the story was a little too in the social media weeds. So that's all in the bonus content if you want to hear about that. We also refer to the fact that we had to move the recording date for this episode, and the reason is that my guest was not in the best emotional place on the original recording date, I guess the way I would put it. She got some upsetting news about a man she'd been seeing, and a lot of new information about it had just come out right when we were supposed to record. And we talk about that in full in the bonus material because it's actually related to the Star Trek community. Also in the bonus material, I tell a story about how I was a minor participant in one of the most meta experiences I had ever had in the realm of internet culture, web forums, and an old NBC show called My Name is Earl. And that's all I'll say about it here, but if you want the full story, it's in the bonus. And for some bizarre reason, my guest and I spent 30 minutes discussing the UK royal family, and that whole thing I just cut. I couldn't believe we'd even spent that much time on it, but no one needs to listen to that. Okay, but there is still plenty of bonus material, well over an hour of it, so enjoy it, or not, as you choose. Let's move on. At the end of every episode, my guest faces my Kobayashi Maru lightning round. They get 5 terrible multiple-choice Star Trek questions, and they must give us their answers. And after each episode drops, I tweet those questions out as polls, where you can have your say. So let's look at the questions from episode 86 with Peter Wolchak and see how it went. Who's chasing you on the Shore Leave planet? The Samurai, Finnegan, or Don Juan? My guest said Finnegan, but the audience poll was tied, with Finnegan and the Samurai at 40% apiece and Don Juan at 20%. Who is worse, Leonor Caridian, Yarnak the Excalbion, or the Gorgon from And the Children Shall Lead? The Gorgon ate his opposition as a snack, with 86% in the poll, and also being the choice of my guest. Yarnak and Leonor were tied at 7% apiece. You can visit one location from the OG 1701. What's it going to be? The Shuttlecraft Bay, the Rec Room, or the Phaser Control Room? My guest said the Rec Room, but the poll respondents did not. It got only 8% in the online poll. Phaser Room got 15%, and the Shuttle Bay got 77%. Y'all be loving on that Galileo now. Which place would be worst to visit? Sigma Iosha 2 from A Piece of the Action, Omega 4 from the Omega Glory, or Pollux 4, Home of Apollo? Peter said Omega 4, and most people did online as well by 55%. Pollux got 27%, and Sigma Iosha came in last at 18%. Now, if you enjoyed those questions and would like to take a stab at writing your own for possible inclusion in the show, send them to me at feedback@trekprofiles.com or DM me on Twitter. And that's the news and weather. Let's get to it. M5, start the show.
Show transmission starting.
Her favorite character is that coffee-quaffing Captain Janeway. She loves Q and those pointy-eared Vulcans, too. She's from Ohio, North America, Earth, in Sector 001. It's Mary Faulds. Welcome, Mary, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. I'm very thrilled.
I'm excited, too, because you are one of my first guests that I've gotten from the TikTok, which I find very exciting.
Oh, really? Oh, no. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we are going to get into that just in a minute. But the M5 is a harsh taskmaster, and he demands that I ask question one, which is, Mary, are you a Star Trek fan?
I absolutely am a Star Trek fan.
And when did you decide you were a fan of something called Star Trek?
Oh, when was I a fan? I think I could probably say I was a true fan in 2003. I had watched Star Trek before as a kid.
Okay.
The original series was on syndication, in the 80s. And I would come home from school and it would be on, and then the Monkees would play. And I love both shows. And so I would watch them after school. And then Next Generation came on. I was about 8 years old when that came on, and I got a look at Wesley Crusher. And my little girl heart was just one. I was like, look at this. There's a boy in space. I love space. I was the kid who loved all of the, shuttle launches and everything. Like NASA was huge to me. I was like, I'm going to be an astronaut when I grow up. So seeing Next Generation was always really cool. We would come home from church and it would be on Sunday afternoons, and I would always try and catch it on the hopes that I would see that cute boy in outer space.
So as a young girl, you were thirsty for Wesley.
I was. It's true. But when I say 2003 is when I really became a fan, that's when my ex-husband introduced me to Voyager. I had not, as a lot of people do, you watch some stuff when you're younger, and then when you're a teenager, you're not really doing that. And that is, what happened with me. I was busy with band and FFA growing up, so I didn't really watch any science fiction so much.
I happen to know what FFA is, but I think my international listeners might need a little bit of translation there. So run that through the Universal Translator for us.
That's okay. FFA stands for Future Farmers of America. It is an agricultural organization that doesn't just cater to farmers anymore because we've grown and expanded beyond that. But I did grow up on a pig farm and I raised pigs and I was a genuine farmer. So
Did you have to bring a pig to the county fair?
I did, yes. I was in 4-H as well, and my pigs were part of my 4-H projects. I would bring several pigs. In fact, I would compete in the litter competition.
That is glorious and wonderful. No, it is. One point of clarification. So you said 2003, your ex-husband. Now, at the time, was he your ex or was he your boyfriend or your husband?
He was my boyfriend.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you started watching in 2003 with your boyfriend.
Yes. So I started watching. He had gotten the VHS tapes. He was getting the monthly or so, whatever it was that people got of Voyager. And I was about to move away. I was actually leaving Ohio to move to Mississippi. And one of the last things that we did together was he was like, will you watch this show with me? And I actually was kind of reluctant. But I finally sat down. I was like, I'm going to be leaving, so I'm going to watch this with him. And we watched the first episode of Voyager, Caretaker. And after it was done, I just was like, what happens? Do they get home? And I was just completely enthralled. So during that year that we spent apart, we had a long distance relationship. He would come and visit me, or I would come and, I'd come back up and visit. He would always have VHS tapes of Voyager that we would watch. And he wouldn't let me watch the last one because he said I wouldn't understand it, which now I understand why he said that. But I was just like obsessed. And that is when like I thought, okay, Star Trek is a real thing in my life. And I was ready to jump in. I was ready to buy uniforms. I wanted to go to conventions. I wanted to go to the Experience in Las Vegas because it was still open then. Yeah, wanted to do all the things.
So you're watching the Voyager videotapes. Now, this is at the time that Enterprise was still on the air from 2001 to 2004.
Yes.
Were you watching Enterprise on free TV at the time?
No, he got Enterprise on DVD. Like, I think it came out pretty quickly after that the show ended. And so we were just always watching DVDs of Star Trek. He got from his family the DVDs of Voyager and then the DVDs of Enterprise, and then the DVDs of the original series. And then by that point in time, we had gotten married and we had some kids, and we'd actually moved back up to Ohio. And then we had Netflix, which had Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. So then we watched Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And so it was in that order that I watched the series. I watched Voyager in its entirety, then Enterprise, then the original series, then Next Generation, and then Deep Space Nine. And it'll come up every year, but on my Facebook, I have commemorated when we watched the last episode of Deep Space Nine, because at that point in time, we had watched every show, every episode, every movie, because he also had gotten movies on DVD, and we had gone to see the movies, the J.J. Abrams movies, too, like all of that stuff. We had seen all of them.
So as the streaming stuff started, did you keep up with it as it came out? Have you seen everything as we sit here in spring of 2023?
I am caught up with everything except for the 4th season of Discovery.
Okay, and is there a reason you're holding out?
I have not connected with that show as much. And I feel like I was distracted by a lot of things. Like, I've really only watched it in the last year.
Okay.
I was in the midst of a Marvel binge, and it just wasn't, and Discovery just wasn't, I wasn't feeling it. So.
Fair enough.
So that was part of it. I was trying to keep up with Marvel, and based on some people's recommendations. So I was really going hard on that. And so Discovery just didn't quite fit the excitement that I was already getting elsewhere.
Have you introduced your kids to Star Trek at all? Are they watching it with you, or are you doing it all by yourself?
Well, when the episodes, like new episodes come on Thursdays and stuff, I typically watch it by myself, but it's usually because I'm doing it at work during my lunch break.
All right, we won't tell the boss.
It's during my lunch break. It's during my lunch break. We're all good there. But yes, I have introduced my kids to it. I got Paramount Plus like in late 2021 because I knew I was behind. I had never watched any Lower Decks. I had never watched any Discovery, and I had only watched the first season of Picard, which, the second season at that point in time was coming out soon. And anyways, I fell in love with Lower Decks. And I was like, I told my kids, I was like, guys, you got to watch this. You've absolutely got to watch this. This is so good. And also Prodigy was coming out very soon.
Yeah.
So I was like, I sat my kids down and I had them watch Lower Decks with me. And my boys were like, in it. They're like, yeah. They're like, we love this. And I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. I have 2 boys. My daughter, who's 15, was not so much into it. She was like, nah, Mom, I don't really like Star Trek. And I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. My oldest son actually has taken to like watching, other episodes of other series on his own, and we'll sit down, like I'll be watching, I'll just flip on Pluto TV, just for funs, just because, I don't know, sometimes it's like when you don't know what episode's coming up necessarily, it kind of makes it a little bit more fun to watch. And I'll have the More Star Trek channel on, which plays Voyager. And he'll come and he'll sit and he'll watch it with me. My youngest son, he has autism. And so he gets very connected and falls in love very hard with things. So he really likes Badgie, which is scary. On Lower Decks, and he's like, don't you like Badgie? And I'm like, I don't know that I do.
If he ever walks up to you and says, can I teach you a lesson? Just say no.
I know. But I love the fact that he loves it, and he's connected with something there. Although I probably should sleep with one eye open.
Do you curate episodes for them, or are they just running rampant through the streaming service?
We kind of run rampant through it. My youngest son, like I said, he really attached to Badgie. And so we have to find like that one. And I'm trying to remember, well, the very first part of the very first episode of Lower Decks, when Mariner is kind of drunk and she's swinging the batleth around. He wanted to watch that scene over and over and over again. I was like, I don't want to see Boimler get his leg cut. I'm saying this stuff and I'm like, maybe I should be concerned. But no, he's fine. He's actually, my son is very, very sweet. When I went to my first and only Trek convention that I ever went to, which was last year, I went to Mission Chicago.
Okay.
I bought him one of those little Hallmark mini things that they have, the little mini guys. I got him a Gorn because I just thought it was funny. I was like, oh, it's a Gorn. And he loves that Gorn. And he carries it everywhere. He actually has brought it to school. And he's in 6th grade, but he's, since he has autism, he can have like things like fidgets and stuff like that. So that's acceptable for him to have. His teachers just said, because we just had a meeting for him about next school year. And his teachers told us about how they have been introduced to Gorn and how they are very well aware that, like how much he likes Gorn, and Gorn does things, and Gorn will, make appearances and stuff. And they loved the fact that he just like had this thing and they talked about it. And I was quietly, because I had to join via phone. I was quietly so excited that I might very well have at least one Trekkie, maybe two in my family.
Oh, that's glorious. So you mentioned that you went to Mission Chicago, so I want to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
What made you decide that you wanted to go to the convention? Because obviously you don't live in Chicago. You live somewhat nearby in Ohio, but it's still quite an expense. So what made you decide to take the leap and to jump into conventions?
Well, it was kind of me getting involved in Trek Talk, in the Trek community on TikTok. Okay. And a bunch of them were going. And this was like as close as I could get, because Chicago's like 4 hours away. I could make it happen, and it wouldn't be like the wildest, craziest expense because I was only needing to buy tickets and food because one of the other Trek Talkers was like, hey, I'm getting an Airbnb. You can stay with me. Gratis, I was like, really? And she was like, absolutely. And another gal was like, yeah, she's like, I will go in on like breakfast food for us if you just drive me back home, because I'm going to ride a bus in, and home is on the way back for you. And I was like, yes, I will do this. And so I was really excited, and I had just, started to procure a few cosplay uniforms and everything. And this was going to give me an opportunity to take it outside.
So what were your expectations for the convention before you got there?
Well, I really didn't know. I had no idea. Like I knew that there was going to be some meet and greet stuff, so I paid for a group picture with the other girls, with Kate Mulgrew, because that was who I wanted to meet. Because obviously we've already established that Captain Janeway is my favorite. She is my favorite.
All right,
and
very good.
I had to meet her. And anything else, was just going to be icing on the cake. And I ended up with, this is bittersweet because of current personal situations. But two friends, I joined one and paid for my portion of it. And we invited a third friend in to get a picture with the Lower Decks cast.
Nice.
So it was Tawny, it was Jack, and Noelle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dressed up like Jennifer, the Andorian. And it was delightful because as soon as we walked into the picture area, Tawny looks at me. She's like, "Oh my God, Jennifer." She was like, "Should I shove you?" And I looked at her and I said, "Would you please?" It was so funny because that's literally the interaction that we had. And so I was like, when they take the picture, just shove me so it looks real, because you're really shoving me. And she was like, okay. And the photographer didn't quite get it and didn't like the picture. And they're like, can we do this again? Can we take another picture? They usually don't do retakes, but they did for us. And so I was like, okay. I'm like, just pretend to shove me and I'll just throw myself, forward. She's like, got it. And so that's what happened. And she posted it on her Instagram. Some other, I'm trying to think, some other Trek fan things picked it up. They're like, this picture was amazing. Oh my gosh, who are these guys? And I was like, that was me. They're like, that Jennifer is top notch. I'm like, that's me.
So I do have a picture of your Jennifer cosplay that you sent to me, and I'll put that up on the show notes page up at trekprofiles.com, and send me that picture as well, and I'll put that picture up there as well.
It's
so everyone can see
absolutely delightful. It was a highlight of my life. It was so much fun.
So it looks like your convention experience, your expectations were exceeded.
Oh, absolutely. I did not know that coming in painted up cosplay was going to get as much attention as it did.
Oh, yeah.
I was stopped constantly for pictures. Can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? And I was like, I did not know what this kind of popularity was. And the other Andorians were like, hey. And I had people yelling at me from across the hall, move, Jennifer, and stuff like that. It was great. I was kind of overwhelmed. I'm a very outgoing person, but even I have my limits.
I'm shocked to hear you say that. I'm very surprised. Based on how this interview has been going, I thought you were entirely introverted and afraid to open up.
Exactly. But I did I was still energized by the entire thing. And that was just one day. I wasn't expecting as much attention as I got. But there was a guy who was walking around and he had a Starfleet uniform on, but he had a lightsaber through himself, you know, a front of a lightsaber and then the back. And he was like, will you take a picture with me? And I said, only if I can hold the lightsaber. I was stabbing him. And he was like, yeah. So
any more convention plans on the horizon?
I was trying to figure out, I have 2 vacation days left. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I have an offer again of free lodging at Las Vegas if I can make it there.
Fantastic. Well, I'll see you there because I live in Las Vegas.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
So I was like, I saw that on your thing, but I didn't know if it was just oh, that's just the time,
Okay, Mary, I want to talk to you a little bit about your social media presence.
Yes.
Because you're someone who posts a lot. Now, I think found you on Twitter, a very long time ago, and I think we've been mutuals on there quite a while. Mm-hmm. I only recently got on TikTok, and once I got into Trek TikTok, your posts were all over my feed. And TikTok was like, you need to be looking at flute music on TikTok.
Yep.
So talk to me about how your social media got to be so heavily Trek influenced. Were you on social media and then started doing more Star Trek stuff, or did you go onto social media to do Star Trek stuff?
Well, Twitter, I actually was on there just because I started out following Mass Effect fans because I love Mass Effect, the video games. They're my favorite. I had an earlier account that was heavily Trek focused, but then, I got rid of it, time and stuff, raising kids. I just wasn't into it. When I came back, then Mass Effect was a lot of what I was following. And because the new and Mass Effect Andromeda game had come out, so I was just in all of that. As time progressed, I started following and remembering some of the people that I had followed before, and I looked them up and I found them again. And it became a whole lot more Trek influenced as I got into Trek over on TikTok. Now, my TikTok Trek is a little bit of a thing too.
Very clever. Go ahead.
So I started on TikTok back in February of 2020, before the pandemic. I was on there, and I joined TikTok basically to do stupid things and embarrass my kids. And that was the very first video. If you scroll all the way back, you will see me. And I'm like, okay, this is my first TikTok. And so I'm going to embarrass my kids. And I show my daughter. And she's like, Mom. So, and
my first TikTok account got banned. And I have no idea why. I posted 3 videos and they were very anodyne, very one of them was, can you guess my accent by me saying these sentences? Can you guess where I'm from?
Wow.
That was my first video. My second one was, I hope everyone has a good day. And my third one was hey, I'm dressed up in a tuxedo. How does it look?
That is
banned.
Highly offensive against all the community guidelines. I don't even know. I don't know that we can continue this conversation because I'm so offended right now.
It was unbelievable. And I was like, oh, there it was. And I got this message due to repeated violations. And I was like, what violations? I literally posted 3 videos and I'm so nice to everybody. I have no idea. So I appealed it. And they're like, nope, appeal is irreversible. You are banned.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. So my first TikTok is long gone.
Well, anyways, it took over a year for me to find Star Trek on there at all. I was hit and miss on TikTok doing, stupid trends and stuff that we all did during the pandemic, It's just what we were doing. And I ended up finding a couple people doing some clips of resolutions from Voyager, and I was like, excuse me, people are on here doing some acting of my favorite episode. And so I was thrilled. And I have a video on there way down deep in the archives that says, I just found Star Trek, where have you guys been? Because during my marriage and stuff, I'm divorced now. During my marriage, my ex-husband was also, he enjoyed Trek, but he was not a fan like I was. I wanted to buy us uniforms so we could take the kids trick-or-treating as a crew. Mm-hmm. I was like, we get the kids little Starfleet uniforms and then we would be in the uniforms too, and it would be so cute. We would all be together. It would be matching. And he's like, why do you have to do this? And I'm like, because it's amazing. And, we had a Halloween party that we went to, and I did my own very basic, very bad, but I did it. Orion's, slave girl thing. And I painted my body with the cheap Spirit Halloween paint. Took me 4 hours to paint my
dreadful.
body. It wasn't very good, but boy, I did it. And I only got second place in the costume contest, and I was pissed.
Oh, no.
I'm I lost to one of those inflatable T-Rexes. I was so mad. I was so mad.
Oh, those inflatable T-Rexes are cute, but I mean, it's just a thing you bought.
Right, I know. It was hilarious. I put so much time in, but I stained up their chairs at the house, so they'll never forget me.
So, as we sit here, do you own any uniforms?
I own 8 Starfleet uniforms and 1 Orville uniform.
Okay, and what's your favorite?
My favorite uniform? This is going to sound funny because the one that I think looks the best on me is my Picard 2385 jacket.
Okay.
I don't like the show.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but let's just stick with the cosplay for a second.
But I love that jacket. It looks good.
Yeah.
I got it in the red. It looks really good on me. My second favorite is my Voyager Command red.
Because of your love for Captain Janeway.
Because of my love for Captain Janeway. Yeah.
All right. Fantastic.
Yes.
Mary, I think it's time to talk about some episodes. The M5 has demanded that we talk about some episodes. He's put together a list for us to talk about. Are you game?
I am absolutely game. Let's go.
So the M5 has suggested that we talk about Voyager Season 3, Episode 22, Real Life. This, of course, is the one where the Doctor has his fake family and his virtual son turns into a member of the Cure during his goth phase. So tell me...
The Cure.
Tell me what's going on with this particular episode, and why has the M5, after doing some gentle internet sleuthing, decided that this is an episode we should talk about?
Oh, because this is the episode that I cry. I always cry. This is the one episode of Star Trek where I think, and it's kind of funny, but I think I found my mother's heart. The first time I watched it was with my ex-husband, before we were married, before we had kids. But bro, if I wasn't crying at the end of that episode, and I just felt the pain there. And I watched it about 2 or 3 weeks ago again, and my kids were here and they were being noisy. And I said, be quiet, because it was getting, like, close to the end. And then they were like, Mommy, are you okay? And then all of a sudden the tears start falling. And they're like, Mommy, they're like, it's just Voyager. I'm like, but the Doctor's daughter died. So yeah, that's really what it is for me. It's my one. I've never cried at any other Star Trek episode. None of them have made me cry except for that one.
If you were, say, 12 or 13 and you had watched Voyager, forgetting let's put the timeline of when the episodes came out to the side, but
yeah,
if you had been like 12 or 13 years old when that episode came out and you'd watched it like 16 times before you even turned like 18, do you think it would have had the same effect on you?
No, I don't.
Say more about that.
I think that had I watched it as a kid or a young teen, that I probably would have put myself more into the kid's perspective than I ever would have the Doctor or the Doctor's wife, or even like B'Elanna, who, just wanted him to see what a real family was like, as opposed to, one that was like, 1950s perfect.
So you would have been a member of the Cure.
I absolutely would have understood. I think I would have been more the daughter.
Oh, okay. By the way, only about, I estimate 20% of my audience will get that reference. But for those of you who don't, I'll put a link up in the show notes. So please continue.
Yeah, I definitely would have been more of the daughter, because she was still, even in her imperfect self, was still very much of a people pleaser, parent pleaser. And that was definitely me as a kid growing up. So I would have saw myself there. So
when you are choosing to watch Star Trek, are you a disciplined rewatcher? You'd mentioned that you'd like to put on Pluto and just watch whatever's on, but do you do like any disciplined rewatches, like where you watch like whole shows or whole seasons straight through?
No.
Putting the streaming stuff to the side for now.
No, I don't. I'm a cherry picker.
Okay.
Sometimes I will go and, pick out a favorite episode and then let it play from there. But no, I kind of tend to go back to favorites, just because.
What prompts you to put on Real Life then?
It allows me to access the part of myself, like I said, it's that mother's heart. And sometimes you just need a good cry. And I find that feeling that pain, because there's been loss in my life. People that have died, family members that have died, tragically and not tragically.
Sure.
And being able to get in touch with that part of myself, the grief, through that is cathartic. It's cleansing. And so I have the few minutes, I cry with them, and, I feel a little bit fresher, a little bit lighter.
I've talked about this on the show before, but I remember exactly where I was in life when TNG came on the air. I was in high school when TNG came back on, or came on to begin with. And I know I watched most of it in original broadcast because that was what me and my friends would talk about literally the next day at school, was whatever happened on TNG. So I know that I saw The Offspring when it originally came out. And ever since I had my kid, whom I affectionately call Whopper Jr., because my wife craved Whoppers when she was pregnant. So I was like, when he comes out, he's going to be a Whopper Jr. I can't really watch the episode anymore. I just can't. Like when she says, "Thank you for my life" at the end, it's like, it wrecks me. It wrecks me, completely. Like nuclear detonation wrecks me. And I can't manage it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that that's one of the things I've discovered in doing this podcast, is how people are affected by episodes different times in their life, by what's going on in their life. And they react differently to these episodes, which is something I often wonder about. And I don't have any answers here, but I often wonder about the new shows. And I think, which of the episodes that 20 years from now are going to affect people in that way? And I don't know the answer to that. It's not like I'm expecting people to say something. I really have no idea. But should I be around and should I still be doing this? I look forward to those discussions and finding out how this pop culture phenomena has affected people 20 years from now.
Well, I will say, and you might be surprised to hear this, but maybe not so much, but I say Real Life was the only episode that made me cry. And then I just, as you were saying this stuff, I remembered that that's not true.
Uh-oh. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Because I will be
adding your name to my whiteboard.
You can, yeah. I remember now, in watching Picard season 3, gasp, that when Seven and Jack were going through the ships in the the museum, and
Ethan Prime,
yeah, and she talked about Voyager. And the Voyager theme song came on in the background. And it has to do because, again, my love of Voyager. If it were anything else, it probably wouldn't have affected me as deeply. But when she started to talk about it, and she talked about her affection for Voyager and how it was a family and everything, and I think that's really why Voyager means so much to me. That brought some tears to my eyes.
Let's talk about the one episode that single-handedly launched 7,000 fanfics, and that's Voyager Resolutions Season 2, Episode 25, where Chakotay is hell-bent on building a headboard and a bathtub, like, immediately upon landing on the planet. Oh, we're stuck here? So sad. So, how do you want to structure our lives together? What shall we do? Oh, dear. Let's start building things. And, of course, there's the monkey, which just always blows my mind every time he shows up. So, tell me about this episode and why it is important and relevant to you.
Oh, for
what
goodness
did you learn
sake,
from it?
I am the biggest JC shipper. I don't know, except that
that's quite a humble brag there.
It is,
because there's a lot of JC shippers out there.
I probably am not. I'm probably small potatoes, but when the first time that I watched that episode, I could not have been angrier.
Angry? Oh, say more.
I was so angry because the way that it ended, and I had no resolutions, none. There was frustrations is what I got from that whole episode, because I needed them to get together. They had been toying with me. The writers of Voyager had been toying with me. They had been toying with Chakotay and Janeway and maybe being a thing and maybe not being a thing. And then they put them together, and then he tells the story, and then they hold the hands, and then nothing. And then like, oh, we figured it out. It is absolutely why fan fiction is written. I haven't written any solidly Voyager fan fiction myself. But I have some crossover fan fiction between Voyager and Mass Effect, and there might be a hint that there is a JC situation going on. I am just saying. I'm just saying.
And my listeners are currently searching AO3 right now.
It's not on AO3. And it's also not finished because I got destroyed for my bad science by Trek Bros. So I stopped.
Oh, don't worry about that. You should go for it.
I was really sad. It was a great fan fiction. I'm not gonna lie.
So when this episode comes up, fanfic aside, I always have to ask the binary question: did the deed occur? Yes or no?
Hell yeah, it did.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go. So I don't have an opinion on that, but I just wanted to get you on record.
I absolutely think that it did. And I keep watching episodes, and I watch them, and I feel like that's why when they fight. So it was like in the episode Equinox, that they fought over what they should do, and Chakotay just outright, he disobeyed. He disobeyed orders. And because he was mad at Janeway because of some of the stuff that she was doing, because he thought that she was stepping too far and becoming more like Captain Ransom. Anyways, those kinds of fights between them, that's why I feel like when you look at Janeway and you see her face, and I love Kate Mulgrew's ability to just show so much emotion in a face. And she looks like she has been so betrayed. And that's why I think it happened between them, because it takes that kind of connection to feel that kind of betrayal.
Do you think it happened again, maybe after the resolutions of this episode? See what I did there?
I would love to think so, and I've definitely read some fan fiction about it, so.
I don't know if you've seen the 2003 Battlestar Galactica remake.
I have.
But there was a question that someone asked, and I can't remember if it was Mary McDonnell or Edward James Olmos, but the question was, are they ever going to get together? And the answer was, they've been together and they've been doing it the whole time. Like that's been happening the entire series. We didn't film any of it.
Of course. We all knew that was going on. We all knew it was going on. I loved it. I really loved their dynamic too. And I loved
one of my all-time favorite sci-fi romances.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Sure.
And Battlestar Galactica's remake was phenomenal.
Oh, top shelf stuff. So
did you watch The Orville then?
Yeah, I've seen The Orville. All of it.
The egg salad sandwich. Bro, I was screaming.
Really?
I was screaming over that. I had not watched it at all until last year. Mm-hmm. And then I watched all of it. And I saved the last episode actually to watch with Rick when I visited him in September of last year, because he was the one who told me to watch it and that it was so good and stuff. So I would give him my thoughts about it and all that stuff. And so we sat and we were watching the last episode, and the egg salad sandwich showed back up, and I was like, oh my God! Oh my God!
So,
and
I get it. It's a great show. All right, let's talk about The Forsaken, Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 17. And this, of course, is the one where we get Luoxana Troy with her various and numerous titles, who declares, among other things, that she's always wanted to see an upper pylon with Odo. So please tell me what's going on in this particular episode for you.
Vulnerability. Which is funny because this is what we just kind of came off of. But that's the reason why... that episode means so much to me, because there is this vulnerability between Lwaxana and Odo that is palpable.
Yeah, she's talking about her wig. He's talking about the fact that he can't maintain his shape.
Yes.
All that stuff.
And she accepts him for how he is and doesn't... She's like, it's okay, you can do your thing. You know, it's fine. And I don't know, except that moment, like the rest of the episode, I don't even hardly remember. But that moment, right then and there, I was like, first of all, I like Lwaxana. Some people don't. I feel like she's a very polarizing figure in Trek.
On the Trek Profiles podcast, we stand Lwaxana. Just pointing that out.
Okay. Well, I am also Lwaxana stan, because I feel like she's one of the most real people. She is one of the realest. And watching her and Odo talk about their insecurities it just feeds my soul. It feeds my soul because, like I said, I want people to know me. I don't want people to just know me as Fun Mary or Cosplay Mary or Jennifer or whatever like that. I want them to know that Mary worries about her kids, that she feels like she fails as a parent because she got divorced, even though she thinks that's the right thing. That was the right thing for her to do. She is the person who thinks that she's never going to find somebody again in this life because men are you know, it's just like, I don't want to die alone, but sometimes I feel like that's going to be the case. I just hope I find a cat. So, you know, it's like that kind of authenticity, that kind of, you know, I don't like people singing happy birthday to me, but I love my birthday. It's those kinds of weird eccentricities about myself. I just want people to know about me. It was just like, what? Was it even 2 minutes worth of a scene? Mm-hmm. That's what it meant to me. It was huge.
I think that if you look back at all the Lwaxana Picard scenes, she's always putting on that Lwaxana front. Mm-hmm. And maybe there was a few scenes here and there, like maybe in Half a Life when she's talking about how she's going to go down to the planet, she's not going to cause a problem.
Yes.
That was very genuine, you know. But with Jean-Luc, she's always a certain way.
Yes.
And I really appreciated the fact that we got a lot of the most genuine Lwaxana here. And, you know, there's some other episodes too. And you can say what you want about Dark Page, but I think there's some in there too. And I really like that about the episode.
Yes.
And, you know, even though the effects don't hold up, there's a lot of emotional beats in this episode that really ring true. And, of course, for my own self, a Bolian ambassador, which always pleases me.
Ah, yes, the Bolians. Bolians are actually kind of a joke. Side note, Bolians are actually kind of a joke among me and my kids. Now, while my kids, you know, I told you my boys are, I would say primordial Trekkies. They're the very, very early stages. And my daughter is not one at all. They all understand if I talk about Bolians. They're like, ew, because in Voyager, there were numerous jokes in Voyager about like Bolian digestive issues. And
so I have info on this, but go ahead.
So we just like some people make toilet jokes, we'll make Bolian jokes. That's all.
Okay, Mary, let's talk about Voyager, Season 5, Episode 10, Counterpoint.
Ooh.
So this, of course, is the one where Voyager has to smuggle telepathic refugees through Devore space. And we have the weird sort of will they, won't they sort of relationship tension between Janeway and the Devore Inspector. So
yes.
Tell me what's
Ashik.
going on in this episode for you. What's going on here? Is this more of the shipping stuff, or is there something else going on? Give me all the tea.
It's less shipping, though I do enjoy that. I think I spent an inordinate amount of time watching a YouTube video that someone edited together of this episode with the Adele song, Rolling in the Deep. I know, but it's real. It's really there.
So you're saying that there's a fire.
There is. And I watched that video like a lot. I watched it on repeat.
Okay, I gotta find it, and I'll put a link up on the show notes page.
I hope it's still there. I'm gonna say, because when I watched it, was my daughter born? I mean, I'm not even joking. We're talking early days of YouTube, because my daughter was born in 2008. So anyways, that being said, this episode is, I guess, a moment where I actually fell in love with Janeway. Now, I already loved her. Obviously, I watched this, we're 5 seasons in. But the wit, her cleverness, just everything about it. And again, this is Janeway, but it's also Kate Mulgrew.
Mm-hmm.
Her voice, her acting, everything about this just hit for me. And I think that it was watching her, and this is going to be kind of funny, because I consider myself pretty heterosexual. This one made me question that. I was like, maybe I'm not.
Oh, thirsty for Janeway, are we?
A little thirsty for Janeway. She does something for me. The way that she talks, the way that her voice like rolls in my ears and everything, I'm like, kinda yeah. I'm here for this. And then also, it's also the whole brains thing. I'm very attracted to intelligence. And her intelligence in this was monumental. The way that you saw her and you thought she was falling, and maybe she did. Maybe her emotions did get caught up a little bit, but she still was smart enough to know that not to have that failsafe in the back and not completely trust him. And then when they had their little repartee at the end, where he knew that he had been outwitted by her. And she said, my offer was genuine. You could have come with us. And he was like, I was tempted. And I was like, I loved it. I loved every second of it. It was like a romance novel for me. It really was. But who was I attracted to? It was Captain Janeway.
So we didn't prep this at all, but I just want to kind of put you on the spot and ask you about this.
Yeah.
Please tell us your opinions on Delete the Wife.
Okay, so I made a TikTok about that Delete the Wife thing. About, like, in April. I think I made it. Along with a trending sound. Actually, I don't really like Michael Sullivan.
Okay.
I thought the Delete the Wife thing was hilarious. I liked her agency in it. I did not love Michael Sullivan because, to me, bro ain't all that handsome. So, and that's pretty much it. It's very superficial. It's very superficial. But the Delete the Wife thing made me laugh. But I liked her struggle in it. That the fact that she deleted the wife, and then, she made him taller, and then she was doing all these things, and then she's like, what am I doing? I'm attracted to a hologram. but I'm controlling him and making him into my perfect thing. That's not okay. That's not healthy. This is not allowing me to have a healthy relationship if that's what I wanted to have. And I admire that, because what kind of self-awareness there did that take?
Oh, it's great.
You know?
One of the things about this episode that I glommed onto, which is a very obscure TAS reference, by the way, is that I don't like the fact that Janeway is modifying someone else's holodeck program without permission. This is, if I remember right, it's Paris's holodeck program.
It is.
It's Paris's holodeck program. Why in the world is she messing around with it? If I put together a holodeck program and I let you use it, I would be kind of torqued off if you were deleting my parameters and moving stuff around. And this goes back to something we talked about before, which is that there's stuff that brings me out of an episode because of my own experiences, that I don't think the writers care about. This is one of those things. So I don't get all that hung up about it, but it's something that I'm aware of and I think about as I watch the episode. All right, let's return to the list that the M5 has prepared for us.
Okay.
Let's talk about Deep Space Nine, In the Hands of the Prophets, Season 1, Episode 20, which, as I watched it in preparation for this, the one thing I had forgotten is that Major Kira starts Deep Space Nine as a Kai Wynn supporter. So this, of course, is the one where Kai Wynn comes aboard the station and causes a whole thing with Keiko.
Yes.
Tell me what's going on in this episode for you.
This episode for me is actually kind of, you hit it right there with talking about Major Kira and the fact that she was a Kai Wynn supporter, but then moved away from that. And that's a kind of a personal reflection of my own spiritual journey. I was raised as a conservative Christian. And while I haven't abandoned my faith as a Christian, I am not in the same place that I used to be. And I don't have a lot of the same, I guess, I don't know what I exactly want to call it, because it's not exactly values or beliefs, but probably prejudices. I don't have them anymore. It's funny because, like, there's this, I guess this old train of thought or something like that is like, as you get older, you get more conservative. And maybe that used to be the case, or maybe that was the case with boomers, but I don't find that that's the case anymore, especially with maybe Gen X and later. We're not getting more conservative as we age because, again, I am a Christian. I still am. I still practice. I still believe. And the Jesus that I serve loves all. And in this episode, this is what I saw, was that people can be so stuck in dogma and basically pharisaical things, and you forget about the people behind it, and you no longer are practicing a religion that cares about the people that practice it or the people that don't. And the thing is about any religion is that you've got to look outside of yourself. You've got to look outside of yourself, because if you aren't treating other people, if you aren't treating people the way you would want to be treated, are you actually faithful? So it's just really a lot about the spiritual journey for me, in which I found myself over here judging people that I knew nothing about, that I had no idea of the kinds of lives they lived and the things that they ran into, and watching the cruelty and the hard-headedness and the unwillingness to see anything beyond yourself or what your beliefs are to the people on the other side is what is what changed for me. Because, I mean, I don't know. I'm just going to be real frank about it. Homosexuality is wrong. Abortion is wrong. And these different things are wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. But I never looked at the people who are homosexual because I wasn't raised with people who identified that way.
Or people you knew who identified that way.
Exactly. I did not know because it was all probably very hidden in the mid-90s like that. It still wasn't that well accepted. And abortion, I never met anybody who needed one. I never thought about people's life circumstances where that would be a necessity. And going through the work experience that I've had, meeting people who were so vehemently anti-LGBTQ that it was gross and made me uncomfortable with their hatred. And it was like, these people just want to be loved just like we want to be loved. And then going through my divorce and not having a job, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but like needing to get on assistance, like food stamps and things. While I cannot have any more kids, it definitely turned my head to what would happen if I had to have another, or, if I got pregnant. I couldn't handle another kid. I wouldn't want to put my kid through that. I can't do that right now. Think about somebody who's in a lot worse circumstances than me. And so for me, it's just been a lot of changing my perspective from what I thought was just pounded in stone to maybe it's not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to soften my look and be open to other people's experiences. And just like I want to be known, other people want to be known and understood and loved. And when they have to make hard decisions, maybe they don't like those hard decisions that they had to make, but they had to make them. And this world isn't perfect. And this world doesn't allow us to make all the best decisions all the time. But we do what we can with what we can. And we need to accept people as they are. And I'm not saying like I'm going to love every murderer, but but you understand, like what I mean. Like I understand now a whole lot more where people are coming from. And that includes like trans people and people who are non-binary and people who have had to have an abortion, all of those different things. Like these are all things where I have come to a place where it's like, I don't hate you for who you are. I don't hate you for what you've been through. I don't hate what you've done or what's gone on in your life, because I could look back and you can hate me for feeling the way that I did towards people like you. That makes me no better. We're on an even playing field here. And we both have to find ways to connect. So that's kind of what, as a deep dive with that episode.
No, it's all good. That's what we do here on Trek Profiles. is it's about what your reaction is to the episode, and I'll share mine, which is that I've often gotten in trouble online for my appreciation for one of the key players in this episode, which is Vedek Bareil.
Uh-huh.
Most people look at Vedek Bareil as a romantic partner for Major Kira.
Sure.
Which is okay if you want to analyze the character that way.
Yeah.
But I will just say that I have tremendous respect and affection for the character.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate his serenity.
Yes.
And I wish it's something that I had more of in my life. I appreciate his quiet stillness and peace, which I think is something we could all use a lot more of. And his dedication to the cause. I mean, this is a guy who ends up at the end of the show giving his life in a horrible cyborg twisted experience, for the greater glory of Bajor. I love the character of Belial, and I will defend him against all attackers.
He's steadfast.
Absolutely. He is 100% legit, and he is unfairly maligned because people are like, well, I don't like him as a romantic partner for Kira, therefore he sucks. And I find that reductionist, and I oppose it. I love the guy, and I think I was most impressed by him right in this episode, where we see him in the garden, and he has this just aura around him that really affected me, and maybe it doesn't land for other people, but it does for me.
No, absolutely. He definitely, basically, was like the kind of person that I feel like, because again, I'm coming from my perspective as a Christian of what I would want Christians to be, open and loving. We know what we are, and we're still talking to everybody and reaching out to everybody, because isn't that what Jesus did?
Okay, Mary, I think it's time to talk about one of the most talked about episodes of Star Trek Voyager on Trek Profiles. So I'll leave that setting there for my listeners to cogitate on. All right, time's up. The answer is Voyager Year of Hell, which is the amazing two-parter. And in my opinion, just my opinion, I feel that this episode, every time I watch it, it's always sort of the great unknown, because in the lore of the show, there was supposed to be a whole season of Year of Hell that we never got.
Yes.
So this was season 4, episode 8, Year of Hell. And of course, with the Krenim time ship and the fantabulous and unbelievably awesome Kurtwood Smith as Anorax. So tell me what's going on with this particular episode for you.
Year of Hell. This is an episode or pair of episodes I go back to time and time and time again.
Oh, you made a pun there. Time again.
I know.
Year of Hell.
but it's true. It is one that I will watch all the time and not get tired of. I find the storyline so compelling that I do wish that we had at least a half season. Maybe, these were 26 episode seasons, I think, ish.
Thereabout.
I would take 13 episodes of something like this. I absolutely would. I don't know if you could fully flesh it out. Maybe they had ideas. Maybe I would be super impressed to have an entire season, but I think at least half a season would have been amazing, because I would have really liked to dig into basically Chakotay's, I'm not going to call it Stockholm Syndrome, but what he did in trying to figure out like his own time calculations and everything that he did aboard the Krenim ship, because he and Tom Paris were, captured and brought aboard. And while Tom was like, absolutely not, Chakotay really worked his way into trying to figure out the psychology of everything that they were doing. And I would have loved to dig deeper into that. At the same time, I also would have loved to see more of what goes on Voyager, because the struggle was so real. I felt every bit of pain in the things that happened, with Tuvok being blinded and just a lot of this stuff. It was just, to me, stellar writing. And again, this is another Janeway moment for me, where I just found her strength, because I have had to be so strong in a lot of things in my life where my ship is falling apart around me and the attacks don't stop and I don't even know why they're going on. And I felt like that's how they felt too. Like they they were seeing all this stuff before they figured out, the time ship and stuff like that. They were just getting attacked left and right, and just Voyager's just like, what are we going to do? And I loved, and we said this before, we were talking about Vedic Bareil, I loved her steadfastness and how she didn't give up her belief in Voyager, the ship itself, and the people that she had around her. And, she didn't want Chakotay to get caught up in the sentimentality when he gave her the watch, but she still did a little bit with the teacup. And I just find that, like we have these strong things, these strong moments and stuff like that, but we still have these little moments of sentimentality where we allow ourselves just the indulgence of feeling the slightest bit weak. And it's not weakness to feel weak in a moment of struggle. It gives us a taste, a reminder of our humanity, a reminder of our mortality. We're here for a time and then we're not. And to understand that is important. So then we have to make the most of what we've got. And we can fight really hard to stay here, like they do on Year of Hell. And I wish things that could be solved so easily with just a reset of time. I do wish that sometimes. But the fear that she must have felt, or maybe she didn't at the end, right before that reset happens, because it was absolutely unknown. She didn't know if that was going to fix anything. It might not have. It might have just been the end of Captain Janeway and the Starship Voyager. That could have been it. And it didn't work. And then just killed everybody else. And that was all we got. So the risk there as well, I find that very inspiring. That sometimes when we have hard things in our lives, that is actually when we should take really big risks, not knowing what's going to happen. And I've had those moments in my life. And even the first time I watched it, I loved the episode and hadn't really had the same kind of big risks. But now with more perspective in my life, it means even more now. And I can watch it with more awe. And also a vague sense of pride for the things that I've been through myself.
I often move stuff around as I edit the episodes, and sometimes stuff goes into the bonus material, so I'm not sure in which order people will be listening to this, because I haven't edited it yet, obviously. One of the things we were talking about earlier was Star Trek Picard Season 3, and I'm interested in the character of Captain Shaw, and I'm going to bring this back around to Year of Hell in a second. Mm-hmm. But there's that scene where we're introduced to Captain Shaw where he started dinner before Riker and Picard arrived. And people, fans were basically like, how dare you, sir, right? Treat Picard and Riker in this way. And I'm often reminded that you have to put yourself into the mindset of the other character, the non-main character on the show.
Yeah.
And in my headcanon, Picard is the Badmiral.
Yes.
He is literally the guy who has showed up to try to take the Titan away from its assigned, correct, and proper duties to do something of his own imagining. Mm-hmm. And when we think back to the Pegasus or other TNG episodes where, stuff like that happened to Picard, we're like, how dare you, sir? How dare you? That's a Badmiral. In this episode, Picard's the Badmiral. And in this particular episode, Shaw is smart enough to realize it before the dinner even begins. So he's like, I'm not having any of your Badmiralty. Like, I before we even begin, I'm done with the both of you.
Yeah.
And that's how I interpreted that episode. And as I look at Year of Hell, I think about Anorax. The guy is doing what he's doing for love.
Mm-hmm. There was no real bad guy in Year of Hell. You're right. There was no real bad guy in Year of Hell because I absolutely understood. He lost his wife. He was trying to get his wife back. He had lost himself in his calculations and everything, so much so. And then all of a sudden he realized that he had spent so much time on his work that he lost perspective and literally his wife. That's how my marriage was. My ex always was more focused on work. He was more focused on everybody except for me. He was more focused on work. He was more focused on his mom. He was more focused on our kids. It was always really low on his priority list. And I wanted to see my ex sometimes as a bad guy. And sometimes I still do. But at the same time, he was trying to do things the way he thought because he was working for his family. He just lost perspective. And this, looking at anoraks in that way, allows me at least to give my ex-husband enough grace that we can work together. Let's make it a joke.
Mary, we have been talking for quite a while.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to edit this episode down, but we're over the 3-hour mark as we sit here and record this. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about the fact that you've had some serious angst in your life because of Star Trek and some serious joy. Mm-hmm. You have met some other wonderful people and some other not so wonderful people because of your interactions with Star Trek. It's obviously been a big part of your life.
Yeah.
So now I have to ask, why do you spend all this time doing Star Trek stuff? Why do you care about it? People who don't content create don't understand how much time goes into this. But for every minute you see a video or for every hour you hear of audio, there's many, 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 many more hours that go into creating the thing. So why does it matter to you? Because,
like you said, there's been joy and there's been pain with my interactions with Star Trek. It's probably because, and I said this before some of these things have happened. I believed in the future that Gene Roddenberry had. I want to believe that the best is in front of us. And that even means in my own life as well. That we can be better. I can be better. And having a positive outlook for my life, even when things are hard, because obviously the things of Star Trek came after immense pain and struggle and war and awful, awful things on Earth. They had to go through those things in order to get to the beauty and acceptance that we see in Trek. And it's still not perfect, but boy, does it look nice. And I guess I still want to show people that while I've been through a lot of rough things in my life, that I'm not beat. And I still have a whole lot of wonderful things ahead of me. And so do other people. And I want to share the joy and optimism of Star Trek with them.
Mary, I've enjoyed our conversation. And I know it's been a struggle for you. There's been a lot of very serious stuff we've talked about. But I think it's been very illuminating about the effect that Star Trek has had on your life. And the M5 is signaling me that it's now time for the Kobayashi Maru.
Oh no, I'm so nervous. Wait, let me chug this.
She's chugging a White Claw. The Kobayashi Maru is a challenging and difficult test, cunningly prepared by the M5 just for you. Should you not only survive the test, but pass it as well, the M5 will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our little program. Are you ready to face the M5 and the Kobayashi Maru, Mary?
I am ready.
M5, load the Kobayashi Maru simulation and prepare to record our guest responses.
M5 working. Simulation loaded and ready.
We're hanging out at the virtual bar on the Titan. Who are we drinking with? Raffi, Seven, Shaw, or Jack?
Shaw.
Which of these Kazon sects is the worst? The Kazon Ogla, the Kazon Relora, or the Kazon Pomar?
The Ogla.
Pick a battle to watch. Clack Tekel Brocht, Donatu 5, or Caleb 4?
Caleb 4.
What are we wearing to the Federation Ball? Strange New Worlds duty uniforms, Season 1 Discovery Type A's, or the Prodigy Type B?
Ooh, the Prodigy Type B. Yeah.
Which of these planets would you like to see? The Borg homeworld, the Breen homeworld, or Baranus 3?
The Borg homeworld.
Simulation complete. M5, please compute the results and tell us if our guest has passed the Kobayashi Maru. Mary, I am pleased to tell you that the M5 has calculated that you have passed the Kobayashi Maru simulation. Congratulations, my friend.
Yes.
And now, the M5, who has analyzed your answers, will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our podcast.
Woo.
M5, what title shall we award our guest?
Mary is awarded the title of Arboretum Designer at the Forty Eridani A. Starfleet Yards.
Brownest thumb. Oh no. I literally kill succulents. Might want to recalculate.
Mary, please
Hilarious.
tell people how they can get in touch with you and bring you to task for your various heresies against Star Trek and all of your issues with Star Trek season 3 of Picard.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can find me on TikTok at Flute Music, which is the 2 words, but music ends with a K. And then I'm also on Instagram at flutemusic_cosplay. That's where I post my cosplay stuff. And then I'm also on Twitter at brandnew_Mary. Which I named obviously before like any of this stuff, but I actually do play the flute. People keep asking me, and it's actually a thing that I've carried with me since like 1998. So that's why they're like, well, do you actually play the flute? Yes, I do. I do. And I still do.
Mary, thank you so much for being part of Trek Profiles.
Oh, this has been so much fun.
Here ends this installment of the Trek Profiles podcast. And before we offer a Trek quote to close this episode, I'd like to remind you, yes, you, that you may send us your dazzling dialogue, some dastardly dictation, or a video of yourself singing Faith of the Heart while wearing a Pac-Led cosplay to feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter or Blue Sky at Trek Profiles. Anything you send us may be used in the show, or it may be turned over to the Devore as contraband. Ooh. This time, I leave you with a quote from the character Torat, who in the episode Counterpoint said, quote, "Federations, Imperiums, why do you people feel such a need to align yourselves with monolithic organizations?" Close quote. Thanks for listening, and live long and prosper.
This handcrafted podcast is brought to you by Stars and Sky Media Lab. It's cosmic.
I mean, I'm okay. Today I've been irritated, so.
Okay, good. Well, maybe that'll make a spicy podcast then.
I mean, it's fine. It's totally fine. It does, like, I mean, some of the stuff that I gave you as far as, like, you know, meaningful episodes and everything like that had to do with my divorce. But it's also very relevant now. So, and honestly, I haven't even looked, so I forget everything I told you.
Oh, no. Well, I have it all right here.
I'm the worst. I'm the worst
watched
podcast.
I watched
Yes.
all the episodes you gave me, so I always do that.
That's good. I mean, because most of them are just like general ideas about them. So yeah,
the way it works really is the episodes are a launching off point. Because one of the things I found in having done many episodes of the show is that people get attached to certain episodes of Star Trek, not because the episodes are great. It's because of something going on in their own life.
Oh yeah.
And this show is really, this is your life in Star Trek, right? I mean, I was just editing a podcast earlier today where a guy was sobbing, right? Which happens on the show fairly regularly.
Okay, good. I can cry and we'll be all right.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Might be cathartic then. I have therapy tomorrow.
Good.
You get me first.
Well, you know, someone once described this show as Star Trek therapy, and I don't know how I felt about that. And I was like, well, I don't know.
You might not be wrong.
But, you know, people talk about some very personal things on the show, and some people don't, you know, and that's up to you to determine how much you want to share.
I'm obviously a very open person, so.
Yeah. So, you know, it's all out there on the Talk Tick Twitter spaces, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So,
no, the thing is about with everything that's gone on, I mean, I was quiet about all of it for a very long time.
Well, let's save it for the show.
Okay.
Let's save it for the show.
All right.
It's all good. It's all good. By the way, you see, I'm wearing this just for you. Can you see this?
Yes, Replicator Coffee.
Replicator Coffee Company, right? So I got a Janeway shirt on, right? So I always try to wear something my guest would appreciate.
I have my autobiography of Catherine Janeway sitting here.
I read that.
A sweet girl on TikTok. I think it's one of the Duras sisters, the podcast, their podcast. It was one of them who gave me the set with the Jean-Luc Picard and the Captain Kirk and Janeway autobiography set. I was like,
oh, that's fantastic.
They gave that to me for my birthday. I was like, thanks, guys.
Yeah, you know, some of the brands I follow on Twitter, because they're just so hilarious, is obviously the Steakum people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that guy, I mean, but I mean, have you seen his Twitter? Yeah. I mean, they're insane.
They are. I love Unhinged.
You know,
I wish I could be unhinged. I'm not allowed.
He's unhinged. The people at Wendy's are unhinged.
Uh-huh.
And who's the other? Oh, Radio Shack.
Oh,
of all
yeah,
places.
Radio Shack.
They're nuts.
Have you seen Blockbusters out there again?
First of all, Blockbuster exists. That's a thing.
They've started. They got spicy on Netflix when Netflix is like, you know, they just started cracking down on the password stuff. They're like, well, when we were open, you could always share the movies, and we didn't care where you brought them. As long as you rewound at the. I was like, that's good. I like that.
Somehow, it's funny because TikTok is so weird. I mean, I'm very new to all of this, so I just got on there and I somehow got into like generation war TikTok. And, you know, being Gen X, which I am very solidly in the middle of, there's like a lot of really weird stuff that goes on in there. And I see all these videos, right, that are like, was this part of your childhood? And I saw like a Be Kind rewind sticker and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I am on the cusp of Gen X and millennials. And so I have a good bit of both. I'm like, I have like the Gen X, like it all kind of attitude, but I have millennial problems.
You'll find that you start coming back for the people and that stuff, and it's less about the actual theater, you know, the stuff going on at the convention.
I was going to say, in Chicago, that's exactly what it was. There were about like 12 of us Trek talkers there, and it was about meeting them. I was so excited, you know, because they came from all over the place. You know, one came from as far away as the UK. So it was really amazing.
So I want to return to this social media experience. Yeah. So you have a lot of followers on Twitter. You have a very popular TikTok account where you're talking about a lot of stuff. And I'm just going to posit that maybe the crowning experience of your Twitter lifetime was getting blocked by the showrunner for Star Trek Picard. So tell me what's going on here and how did that happen?
All right, so I got blocked by Terry. I'm not exactly sure. Is it Metalis? However you say his name.
Whichever.
Okay, so I really didn't like the second season of Picard. I watched the first season of Picard, and at that point in time, we had no expectations. Mm-hmm. So, and I was very excited for it. And I watched the first season of Picard and kind of felt like it was a Mass Effect light, because it was like this battle between, or like impending battle between organics and synthetics. And I was like, oh, I've seen this before. But that being said, there was still some good, little bits of nostalgia here and there with going to see Riker and Troy and their daughter, and also the stuff with Data and Data wanting to die.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff, I enjoyed it. So I did not hate season 1. Season 2 came along, and I really didn't like it at all. And as soon as it started, I saw things that I didn't want to have happen, and they happened. And I was like, oh, why though? Because as soon as we got into season 2, they had Laris, and Laris's husband had suddenly died. And I was like, I swear, if you guys make this be some kind of like love connection thing with her and Picard, I'm going to throw hands. And that's exactly what they did. And then the whole season was like, how does Picard love? And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. So anyway, so I really hated it. So season 3, even before season 2 was over, they were like, season 3, they're like, the gang's getting back together. And I was like, guys.
What were they like?
No repeats. So I was like, I like The Next Generation, but I already had a strong suspicion that they were just trying to do a course correction because season 2 was so bad. And I thought, guys, you're not going to fix it with nostalgia. And they would show like little clips here and there, and it would just be like Picard saying, we've got to work together. And I was like, yeah, we know. Friendship will save the day. So like, I'm like, every My Little Pony show has this on there. Like, I don't care.
Are you a brony?
No, I'm not. But my daughter liked My Little Ponies when she was small. So friendship is magic. I do know it a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I should do like a special where I interview a My Little Pony brony.
It would be interesting.
Interview them about how it's affected their life. But continue on. I'm sorry for that.
You can do that as your April Fool's Day episode.
I absolutely should. So if I have any bronies out there in my listenership, please contact me. feedback@trekprofiles.com.
So anyways, I was never impressed by any of the trailers, and so I tried my best to go into season 3 with an open mind. I was like, all right, I know how I feel about this, but maybe they'll do a good job. And okay, so we jump into season 3, and Laris is there, and I'm like, okay, so this is a thing now. And then she's like, have fun on your little quest. And I was like, okay. And she didn't hurt anything. But then all of a sudden, we've got some guy, and everybody had seen like the posters with all the characters on it, and everybody's like, who's that guy? And everybody's like, I bet it's Picard's son. And I was like, yeah, it's Picard's son. It's like the biggest non-surprise of the entire show. So when they finally like got to that point, and it took forever, they were like, this is Picard's son. And I was like, and when they had that scene with him and Picard, and he said like he was like 23, and I was like, what? guy is not 23. There's no way that guy, I cannot believe that guy is 23. So anyways, I was thinking about it, and I tweeted about it, and I said something to the effect of, that guy's not 23. I said what I said. And I made a TikTok about it, and I was like, people kind of like, why does it matter? And I said, well, why does it matter? I said, would you hire a 35-year-old woman who looks like she's a 35-year-old woman to play a 22-year-old? No, you would not. I said, I kind of not a real big fan of this. And it really pulls me out. Like, different things pulled people out of the suspense of, disbelief. And that did. Anyways, Terry commented at some of the things that some of the other people were saying to me and stuff. And he's like, why do you care? And I was like, I didn't even respond to him, and he blocked me. And I was like, okay, I guess this is how we are now. But I'm not gonna lie, I actually really do have a big problem with the man, because he DM'd someone of my friends who is under the age of 18, and I was really not cool with that. She messaged me, and she was like, hey, he sent me a message trying to get some clarification on something that I said. And I said, don't you dare answer him, because all of a sudden my mom instincts kicked in. I said, don't answer him. He has no business talking to you like that. And she didn't. And then, she looked at it a little bit later, and it was like he had blocked her because of how the box says you can't respond to this person or whatever. And then a day or two later, he messages her again and says, hey, like a weirdo. And I was like, no. And again, I told her, I said, don't you dare answer. He has no business talking to you. You are under 18. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. He's a showrunner. He should know better than this. So, anyways, like I said, have kind of a problem with him personally because of that. Picard season 3, in the end, I didn't love it, but it was going to be what it was going to be. And some people absolutely do love it, and I'm glad that they do. Because in the end, as far as I'm concerned, if you like any Trek, you're a Trekkie. And I'm okay with that. Just because I don't like it, I'm not going to fight with you about it. Because I was never... the only thing I said was that it, the casting of Jack pulled me out. And I wasn't fighting with people about it. And I also had some problems with the writing too. But we're allowed to give those kinds of things. I wasn't telling them, this show sucks. I didn't say anything like that. I said, I don't like it. It's not for me. And that's how some people feel. I don't like when people bash Discovery. Now, I said that I haven't been able to connect with Discovery, but I will defend it. Because as far as I'm concerned, Picard and Lower Decks and Prodigy and Strange New Worlds are all able to do what they do because Discovery came along. If the Discovery hadn't done as well as it did, because some people say, oh, it's crappy, it's just a garbage show and nobody ever liked it. That's not true. Because if it had done really bad, if it had done really badly, none of those shows would have come. Strange New Worlds would have never been the spinoff. Ever. So, anyways, I will defend any show. I will even defend Picard for that reason.
For some reason, I evaded the block hammer because I noticed an editing mistake in one of the last episodes of Star Trek Picard. And I tweeted about it because I have to go to the office on Thursdays. And so I download the episode onto my phone, and I don't really have the ability to find scrub and all that. And I'm like, hey, did anybody else see this thing? Oh, no, I remember what happened. I watched it before I went to the office. I got up stupid early on Thursday. I watched it, and then I didn't have it to watch. And so I'm like, hey, did anyone notice this thing? And some people were like, first of all, somebody came in really hot at me, and they were like,
though.
And do you remember this? Do you remember this thing?
I remember people coming in hot about any not so great. So go ahead and say.
What happens is there's a scene where they're coming back to the ship, back to the Titan at the very end of season 3.
Yes.
Worf gets off the elevator, then he gets off the elevator again.
I do remember you saying that. I do.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, did anybody else notice this? And this one guy gets in there and he's like super hot and he's like, how dare you? This means that you are pulling people out of the episode and the editor of the episode has failed. And you know, like this is a complete fail that you are talking about this. And I was like, dude, the people who follow me are Star Trek nerds. We are going to freeze frame and screen cap and watch this episode 27 times.
Yes, I remember this conversation that you had. I do.
The people who they are here for this.
Yeah.
You know? So that's like why people follow me. This is a Star Trek podcast account, right? Like we are literally going to lay this thing out on the table and take a scalpel to it.
Right.
You know? So this is like
we dissect
what happens
things.
Here.
It's what we are expected to do. And honestly, Picard is the first show where I ever have done that for real. Because people got on my case. They're like, but what about all the inconsistencies in Voyager? And I said, when I watched Voyager, I was much less knowledgeable. I said, I can go back and watch Voyager and be like, oh yeah. But I still love it. I said, but Picard, it was like, we have so much established things that they ignored. And I was like, so it was problematic for me. And I'm just not a fan of the show. That's a little bittersweet now to think about.
So let's talk about it then. So my listeners are not going to know who's Rick. If you're okay talking about this.
No, it's okay. He's the guy that got me into Trek Talk. It was him and another gal that were doing the resolutions TikToks. They were dressed in cosplay and they were just, lip syncing to the audio of that. And I saw it.
Let me give an explanation for my listeners who may not know. So on TikTok, one of the things you can do is you post videos, obviously, and then people can put that video in their video and kind of act along with it. So that's kind of what they were doing.
Yes.
It's called a duet.
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to explain that because people may not know. So
that's okay. So anyways, I saw it around, it was close to my birthday of 2021 when I first saw them. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite. So anyways, I liked the video and, I looked for more from them to see, if they had done other parts, and I followed both of them and I commented on it and both of them followed me back, and that was great. I actually ended up leaving TikTok for a few months, for most of the summer. In later May, and then I didn't come back until the end of September. And when I came back at the end of September, I was just like popped back on there, and some of the first videos that I saw were Rick's videos, Trek related, single guy related, that kind of stuff. And I said, hi, I'm back. And he was like, oh, welcome back. And anyways, that kind of started everything. And I saw his stuff and I was like, oh, I'd like to do that. And he showed, we started talking outside of the app. And he told me where to get my uniforms and how to get badges and pips and stuff like that, where good quality things were. And so he really got me into it. The relationship became a lot more than just friends, but there was also what I didn't know was a lot of betrayal behind it. And so, right now I'm just still like really dealing a lot with the loss.
It's okay.
Because he and I were supposed to be starting our own podcast that we wanted to do together. We had this thing, we called it Drunken Nerdy, and we were going to talk about Star Trek things because that was our biggest focus, but also we were going to talk about other things because he has seen a lot more stuff than I have. I'm much less like certain movies and things, mostly because I'm a single mom and he's just single. So he's had more time in his life to not, to not take care of kids. So we were joking, our dynamic on TikTok together. Lots of people thought that we were a couple. And I definitely offered, had feelings. He knew how I felt. I did not know that he was lying about a lot of things. And that's been really, really hard to deal with because he would say stuff like that I was his best friend and everything, and that he could, while he wasn't ready for a relationship and stuff, that he still, he could see a future with me, that it was not going to work. And so I cut him off. And I knew what I knew, and I knew about as many different women as I knew at that point in time. And by that point in time, I knew about at least 8, I think, that I could count. And so I talked about it on TikTok Live. And during that TikTok Live, 6 women came out and said stuff that he had talked inappropriately, led them on, what have you. It was varying degrees of that kind of stuff. And there was obviously some consent to it, but the thing is that it was all uninformed consent because they did not know about me. They did not know about each other. They did not know about this, that, and the other thing. They didn't know his intentions. And he always said, well, I never promised anyone commitments. But he always led people on to believe that that was an eventuality. He was very inconsiderate in that he would try and get women who were vulnerable and try and get them to travel to meet him for hookups and things like that. It was just very awful.
So this guy was essentially working his way through all of our wonderful Star Trek ladies, just trying to find hookups.
Basically,
right? He was playing them all.
Yes. And there were quite a few of them. In the end, I counted out, again, in varying degrees of, they all had bits and pieces of the truth, but nobody had the entire truth. And some of them cared and some of them didn't care. Some of them came forward in public. Some of them came forward to me. And some of them I just know about because he told me. And I counted about 28 women over 2 years.
Holy moly.
Yeah. This wasn't cool. And it makes things difficult. And so I'm still trying to get back into making Trek content because of that.
So that was something that was on my mind as we began recording today, and I even asked you, I'm not sure if I'll put that in the podcast, but I was even asking you if you were all right to record and if you wanted to.
I don't have a problem talking about it because it needs to be talked about, because there's problematic people everywhere, even in nerdy fandoms. There are men who are predatory everywhere. And before anybody says it's not all men, I know it's not all men. And I know it's not just men. I know that women can be predatory too. I get it. But this was one that he was fairly well known.
Yeah, it's been something that's been on my mind because I followed you because I wanted to talk to you about all your Star Trek stuff. And I've seen and we set this all up before any of this came out.
Yes.
So we were set to record before any of this was out.
Yes.
And so I've been watching your TikToks where you've been very public about all this. And I got to say, I was worried about you. I'm still worried about you. And we're not friends. I mean, we don't know each other. This is really our first time talking.
Yeah.
But I feel like such a pit in my stomach when I see the angst that you're experiencing. And I don't know what to do. That's really all I wanted to say about that. I don't really have any other thoughts to offer you. I'm just some random dude in Las Vegas who enjoys your content, and I hope that you continue making it, and I hope you don't let this stop you.
I don't plan on it because just like Star Trek with my ex-husband, I had to reclaim it. I have to reclaim it again. Like I said, he was the one who introduced me to Voyager and really was where I became a fan. And now I have to go and reclaim Trek Talk and reclaim cosplay and stuff for myself, even though he was the one who introduced me to it. And there's pain and there's the picture, which I'm going to share with you. He's in it. But it's okay because those were all beautiful memories and experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So while the pain is there, I still am grateful for the time because he wouldn't have brought me to here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We would not have met had it not been. So, silver linings, right?
Right on, sister. Sometimes listeners to my show will be like, oh, you give them the answers ahead of time. I'm like, I absolutely do not. That is literally a real thing.
I had no idea what any of those battles were. I'm like, what the heck? I only picked Caleb because that's my brother's name.
So those are 3 Klingon battles from Memory Alpha. So Klok Dekel Brocht is a battle where Kor from Deep Space Nine, from TOS. He was involved in those, and Caleb 4 is, I think, a battle from Star Trek Discovery. Okay. But those are all Klingon battles where there was a lot of glory to be had.
Well, yeah. See, I'm real good at my Gowron eyes. I got the big...
Holy Jesus! People don't get the video of this, but that was a very good Gowron. That was a very good Gowron. I am obsessed with like every Gowron meme I ever see. I'm like, yes, glory. So, funny you should bring that up. So, as we were talking before the show, I told you that I have created and have played over many years my own Star Trek version of Cards Against Humanity, and I don't know if you ever played the game.
Oh, yes.
You played. Okay. So you know that you can buy a blank deck? I don't know if you know that. Okay. So I used to handwrite my own Star Trek cards, and my handwriting is not so great. Oh, no. So as we record this, I am making my own cards on stickers that I can put on the blank cards and use in the game. Mm-hmm. I am now deciding to use some pictures, and I have pictures of Gowron eyes.
That's gorgeous.
So if you come out to Vegas, we're gonna play. I'll invite you to wherever I'm gonna do this. And
that would be incredible. Oh my gosh, it'd be so much fun.
Boom diggity, we're done. Was that okay for you?
Yeah, that was great. It really was. I had a blast.
Are you glad you came on?
100%.
Okay, because it's very important to me that my guests have a good experience on the show. And sometimes we talk about some pretty serious stuff.
Oh, I know.
And I just want to make sure it was okay. I don't want anyone walking away from being a guest on my show saying, oh, that was, traumatic or terrible.
Not at all. Not at all. Because I told you, I was like, unfortunately, you're getting me before my therapist gets me, so you might get a dump. So you kind of did.
It's all good.
As long as you were open for it, then it's fine. I enjoy open conversation. No, I appreciate it, and I again apologize for my putting it off. You know, because like I was not.
You got stuff. It's all right.
I was not. He sent me the text that day. It was literally just a couple hours before we were supposed to talk, and I was like, I am in no condition to do.
You're all good, Mary, because one of the things I tried to do was when I started doing Trek profiles, I had been a guest on podcasts before. And when I set up the show, may have failed, but I tried to set it up in a way that I knew would be sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so one of the decisions I made was that I would only do a monthly show. And as I told you in my prep for this, you were like, oh, well, it better not come out before this, that, or the other thing, like 2 weeks away. I was like, this ain't going to come out for months, yo. Because I have tried to set it up in such a way that I don't have to stress about stuff like that. So you want to push a recording back a couple weeks? It's not a big deal because I have 7 other episodes marinating on my hard drive. I'm not joking. I really do. And so like I tell people, do not think this is going to come out next month or the month after that or the month after that. Like 6, 8, 9 months, sometimes a year is normal for my show. Mm-hmm. So totally okay. You want to push it back 2 weeks? Yeah, all good. You know, no problem. So
I hope I didn't say too many dated things. And when I did, I tried to put like a date and year on it just to make it like make sense.
It's fine. It's fine because that's not what the show is about. Mm-hmm. The show is about this pop culture phenomenon, which in my opinion has had an outsized effect on people. And, you know, whatever you want to say about Star Trek, you know, it's popcorn entertainment, you know, it's not serious or it's kind of a stupid show, you know, whatever you want to say. The fact is that it has touched people's lives in a way that, you know, so many other shows have not done. And if you want to run the list of like, here's the most popular TV shows in all of American history or even world history, you know, I would say, you know, maybe those, you know, top 50 shows, you know, whatever the number is, they have not touched people's lives like this show has. Mm-mm. In my opinion.
Not at all.
You know, and for me, one of the most amazing things, sincerely, about Star Trek is that because I decided to do podcasting, I'm meeting so many wonderful people like yourself and like all these other wonderful people who have been on my show. I realize you're saying that, but you are like not even in the top, like not even in the top half of people. Remember I told you that the episode may never be released in my sole opinion? Yeah. Remember I did say that to you, right? You should be asking yourself, what's in those episodes that he's never released?
I don't know.
Just cogitate on that, all right? So there's not going to be any issues here. This is going to go out. When? I don't know. But it's going to be a while, you know? But I thank you for putting up with me for, what have we been going here? 3.5 hours? I mean, it's been a while. So I really appreciate it. And, you know, you never know how it's going to go when you send people a message in the blind. You're like, hey, you want to talk about Star Trek with some rando from the internet? You know, you never know how that's going to go.
No, it's all good. I had done one podcast before, where I got to talk about an episode of the animated series, and that was super fun.
Which episode?
The one where Spock is a kid.
Oh, Yesteryear.
Yeah, so fun.
Yesteryear's awesome.
It is. And
written by DC Fontana.
I actually enjoy the animated series.
Me too.
I was like,
me too.
I'm like, who's dogging this show? Because this show was like great. I appreciate that. That's, you know what? And that's another thing that I did not talk about in this episode, but I did talk about in the ABC News thing, is that I have found so many people. I don't have friends around here. Mm-hmm. I just don't. I live in my ex's hometown. Okay, I didn't grow up here. He did. I made some friends sort of in theater, but theater friends can be very temporary based on the show that you're in and stuff like that, and you kind of hang for a bit. But as soon as I got divorced, everything kind of dissipated. No one wants to hang around with someone who's having trouble. And
you are literally Typhoid Mary.
Yeah.
if you know the reference.
I do. And stumbling into Trek Talk and the way that people have, I don't necessarily want to say rallied around me, but have stood with me and supported me when I've said the stuff about what's happened with Rick and everything. They could have all turned on me. They could have all said, we don't believe you. They could have done any of these things, and that was all a risk I took by speaking out. But they didn't, and I've had so many people. I had 2 women in California say, hey, since you're coming to California anyway, let me take you around. Let me show you some fun things, since now your trip is looking different. I don't want, you won't be alone. And I've had people send me gifts. They don't need to do that kind of stuff. I've had people send me money. They don't need to do that kind of stuff. But they did. Because they were like, Mary, we want you to have a happy birthday. Mary, we want you to go to California and have a nice dinner. We wanted these different things for you. And it's unreal. As much as my mom's like, you need to get some real life friends, but these guys are my real life friends. I don't just interact with them through text. We talk.
Do you remember a web forum called Television Without Pity? Mm-mm. This was a very special time. It was a web forum in the early 2000s, straight on through, and it went up for quite a while, and then it ended when it got bought out by another company, by Bravo TV of all things. And they shut it down. And Television Without Pity was a web forum where people would go and, like, there would be a thread for every new episode of every TV show, and people would just tear it apart, like, with massive snark. Like, massive snark.
I love it.
And it was like, even shows you love, when you went there, you were like, I'm going to rip this thing to shreds, right? And it was glorious. You can find the archives online. Go check it out.
This sounds very Gen X. It sounds very.
Oh, it was because we're feral.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible. And so anyway, there was a show for a period of time called My Name is Earl.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever seen it.
Did not watch it, but yes, I know the show.
Okay. Where I was in the forums ripping up My Name is Earl. Like, and I watched the show and was a fan of it and be like, this episode sucked. All episodes sucked. This one sucked even more than most, because that's just what you did on Television Without Pity. And because it was without pity. That's the whole point. Right. Like, it's in the name. You don't go there to love on it. You go there to be a snarky bastard, right? Well, this guy starts posting about Murphy beds. You know what a Murphy bed is? Yeah. Okay. This guy starts posting about Murphy beds. Yeah, exactly. So this guy starts posting about Murphy beds, and I'm like, what the is this guy talking about? And I just remember being like, that's weird. Okay, that was actually one of the showrunners. They had been reading Television Without Pity, and they made up a character and started posting in the threads. And then in the show, Earl, the character, finds a guy dead in a Murphy bed squished in his apartment. And they're like, checking out the apartment. They're like, hey, Earl, this guy's on the internets. And they start reading the forum that we had all been posting in. And they're like, it was like the most amazing turn of events. Like, they brought the forums into the show. It was f***ing unhinged. Because we're we're idiots on some web forum, like, so making fun of a show. And and these guys, like, put it in the show, and they're like, well, he's got all of his friends are online people. What should we do, Earl? I don't know. Maybe we got to bring him to the funeral. All right, let's do it. So they that was all part of the show, that this guy died in his Murphy bed because it retracted into the wall when he was in it. And so then they're like, we have to invite all the people from the internets, to his funeral. And it was all part of the show, and they were having a go at us, for making fun of his show, which I thought was in the best spirit of the whole thing. I mean, they were right there. And it was just, the whole thing was chef's kiss. I mean, to this day, I've never seen anything quite like that.